Hello everyone. Welcome to Confessions Jury, where people put themselves on the spot, waiting for your judgment. Sit comfortably and listen carefully, as you're about to hear today's cases. You hold the hammer and you apply the law. Let us have your verdict down in the comments section. As always, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Let's head on to our first case. Case 1. Am I the bad person for refusing to help my sister pay for IVF even though I could afford it? I, 30F, have a sister, Rachel, 36F, who has been struggling with infertility for years. She and her husband have tried everything. Fertility treatments, specialists, you name it. Nothing has worked. Recently, they decided to pursue IVF, which is incredibly expensive and not fully covered by their insurance. A couple of months ago, she came to me, asking for a substantial loan to cover the cost, knowing I'm in a good financial position. Here's where things get messy. Rachel and I have never been close. Growing up, she was always the golden child. Our parents gave her everything while I had to figure things out on my own. When I went through a rough time a few years ago, lost my job, had a bad breakup, Rachel was completely unsupportive. In fact, she barely acknowledged my struggles, saying I needed to suck it up. Now, suddenly, she's asking me for money, claiming I'm her last hope for having a baby. When she first asked for the loan, I said I needed time to think about it. I really thought hard about it, and after weighing everything, I said no. It's not that I couldn't afford it. I could, but I didn't want to. Rachel and I haven't had a close relationship in years, and it feels like the only reason she's reaching out now is because she needs something. On top of that, IVF isn't guaranteed to work, and I have serious doubts she'll be able to pay me back if it fails. It feels like I'd be throwing my money away for someone who's barely been there for me when I needed her. Rachel didn't take it well. She accused me of destroying her dream of being a mother and said I was prioritizing my bank account over her family. To make things worse, our parents have completely taken her side. They called me heartless and cold, saying that family helps family, and I should be doing everything I can to help her, especially since I'm in a good financial position. They even went as far as to suggest that I'm preventing the future of our family by denying Rachel the chance to have a child. I've even had relatives reach out, calling me selfish and urging me to reconsider. But here's the thing. I'm trying to save up to buy a house and build my own future with my boyfriend. I don't see why I should put my financial stability at risk for someone who has never made an effort to be there for me emotionally. I also don't think I owe her my savings, just because we're related. Now, my family is practically shunning me. Rachel hasn't spoken to me since, and my parents are guilt-tripping me every chance they get. I feel like I'm being unfairly judged for protecting my own interests. Am I really the bad guy for saying no? Should I have put my feelings aside to help her, even though we're not close? Am I the bad person for refusing to help, despite being able to afford it? What do you guys think? Lay down your ruling in the comments section, and let's move on to our next story. Case 2. Am I the bad person for refusing to cover my coworker's shifts after she called me lazy for not having kids? I, 28F, work full-time in retail, and as anyone who's worked retail knows, it can be pretty exhausting. I've got a busy life outside of work, trying to balance my hobbies, taking care of my apartment, seeing friends, and just taking care of myself. You know, normal adult stuff. I don't have kids, but that doesn't mean I'm lounging around with endless free time. One of my coworkers, Sarah, 32F, has 2 young kids. She's always asking people to cover her shifts, which I understand because being a mom is hard and things come up. Over the past year, I've covered for her quite a few times when she had to leave early or couldn't make it in because of some kid emergency. I did it out of kindness because I get that life can be unpredictable, and I wanted to help her out. But I've started to notice that I'm one of the only ones she asks to help cover her shifts. It's like she expects me to do it just because I don't have the same responsibilities as her. Last week, she asked me again to cover for her because her kid had a school event. Normally, I try to help, but I already had plans to spend the day with my sister, who I hadn't seen in a while. I told Sarah I couldn't this time, and she just sighed and said, "Must be nice to have all that free time. You don't have kids, so it's not like you're busy with anything important." I was pretty taken aback. I told her, just because I don't have kids doesn't mean I don't have a life. My time is important too. She kind of rolled her eyes and walked away, but I could tell she wasn't happy with me. Now she's been telling our other coworkers that I'm selfish and don't understand how hard it is to be a mom. A couple of them have started acting a bit distant toward me, and I overheard one of them saying something like, "She has it easy. No wonder she doesn't get it." I didn't realize not having kids made me less deserving of respect at work. What really gets me is that I've always tried to help when I could. But just because I don't have kids doesn't mean my life is suddenly stress-free or that I can drop everything at a moment's notice. I feel like Sarah doesn't respect my time at all, and that really bothers me. I ended up mentioning it to my manager, hoping for a little understanding, but they just said it's a personal conflict and didn't want to get involved. So now I'm stuck feeling like the bad guy because I said no for once. I honestly don't think it's fair to expect me to cover her shifts all the time just because I don't have children. I have responsibilities too, and I deserve to have a life outside of work. But some of my coworkers seem to think I should be helping out more because Sarah's a mom and I'm not. Am I being selfish here? AITA for finally standing my ground and refusing to cover her shifts after she basically called me lazy. What do you guys think of this one? Let us know in the comments section, and let's move on to our next story. Case 3. Am I the bad person for kicking my brother and his new wife out of my house after they tried to redecorate my dead daughter's room while I was at work? So, this is still pretty fresh, and I'm absolutely fuming. For context, I, 38F, lost my daughter 2 years ago in a car accident. She was only 14, and ever since that day, I've kept her room exactly as she left it. I don't go in there often, but just knowing that it's there, untouched, brings me comfort. It's like having a piece of her still with me. Her posters, her art supplies, her clothes, all of it is still there. I can't bring myself to change it. Now, fast forward to a few months ago, my brother, 34M, and his new wife, 29F, had some financial issues after blowing a ton of money on a ridiculous, extravagant wedding. They asked if they could stay with me while they saved up for a place. Even though I wasn't thrilled about it, I agreed because, well, family, right? At first, things were fine, until recently. I noticed my sister-in-law making comments about how I shouldn't keep a shrine and how it's time to move on. I ignored her because, frankly, it's none of her damn business how I grieve my child. My brother mostly stayed quiet, but I could tell she was getting into his ear. Anyway, I came home from work last week to a literal nightmare. I walked into my daughter's room, and I kid you not, they had taken down all her posters, boxed up her stuff, and had started repainting the walls a hideous beige. They had moved in a bunch of generic furniture, hung up new curtains, and were apparently turning it into a guest room. I lost it, screaming, crying, the whole thing. I asked them what the hell they were thinking, and their response: my SIL had the nerve to tell me they did it as a favor to help me move on, because it was unhealthy for me to keep the room as it was. I was shaking with rage. I told them to pack their stuff and get the hell out of my house immediately. My brother tried to calm me down, saying they meant well and were only trying to help me let go. He even tried to make me feel guilty by saying they had nowhere else to go right now, as if that would make me suddenly forgive them for destroying the last piece of my daughter I had left. I told them I didn't care and that they had crossed an unforgivable line. Now my whole family is divided. My parents think I overreacted and say I'm being heartless for kicking them out. They keep saying they were just trying to help, they didn't mean any harm, and that I'm being too harsh because people grieve differently. They're even suggesting I apologize and let them move back in. My brother is still texting me, asking me to reconsider, saying they're in a tough spot. But all I see when I look at him is betrayal. So, am I the bad person for kicking them out and refusing to even consider letting them back in after what they did? Can't wrap my head around that story. What do you think? Who was in the wrong there? Let us know down in the comment section, and let's move on to our last case. Case 4. Am I the bad person for going to the neighbors, crying after my soul locked me out? He is mad because he said involving the neighbors was the worst thing I could have done, and I embarrassed him. We got in a fight after I got home from a work trip because I was acting like a bitch and being demanding because I said, word for word, where's stepkid's name's Spanish notebook? Did he lose his calculator? If it was because he was drinking, but he snapped at me and told me not to start, which upset me. When I told him I just got back from a long flight and had went out of my way to buy him dinner on the way home and didn't appreciate coming home to being talked down to over nothing, he got mad and it escalated, basically blaming the whole argument on me talking about his son's schoolwork when he didn't want to talk about it. He stormed out, and I followed him, my mistake. Then he quickly doubled back and locked the door, locked every door in the house, and removed the electronic lock pad somehow from the door, so I couldn't use the keypad to get in. I had no shoes on, no purse, no phone, no car keys. I banged on the door a bit, and he just looked at me through the glass and ignored me. When I panicked and started crying and begging for him to let me in, he just left the room. So I went to the neighbors who are our friends and asked if I could use her phone. I was going to call the cops, but called my so first. When he realized I was next door, he acted like nothing was wrong and said the door was unlocked. My neighbor walked me over, and I thanked her and apologized and said everything was okay. Just an argument. Should I have just waited outside? Part of me feels bad for embarrassing him, but part of me is very upset he did that and feels like he deserved it. You've sat down. You've listened. Now, it's time to state your ruling. What is it going to be? Let us have it down in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more cases like these. In life, we may run, but we can never hide from true justice. Stay safe, everyone.